I was waiting for the little live button, and we got it now. We are live streaming the Creative Writing Awards 2021. My name is Jacob Arnold. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you officially to our first Creative Writing Awards in 2 years. Last year, we had to cancel, unfortunately, because all of this was happening and being built right around the time that we shut down and the world stopped turning. Before Texas froze, though, so there was that positive. We had that going for us. But I cannot tell you how absolutely thrilled I am to be sitting here in front of you digitally, even digitally, to bring you such wonderful news, all of these brilliant writers that we're going to talk about. You're going to hear from amazing writers tonight. You're going to hear from some of our winners. You're going to hear from Kelsey Tony. You're going to hear some really inspiring stuff. And so first of all, I want to thank you viewers for being here. However many there are, I can't tell from my end, but I appreciate you. 1 to 5,000. 5,000 would be a good number. I really, really appreciate you. So I want to get some thank yous here right at the beginning. And the first person I'd like to thank is Gabriel Fletcher, who we, as the committee for the Creative Writing Awards, kind of followed in step. We are trying to fill some very big shoes. Thank you, Gabriel, for running this for years and years and years and doing a magnificent job and keeping the April perennial alive. We appreciate you, and we appreciate everything that you put into this award ceremony, even alone, and just all of the contest in and of itself. So thank you so much. The next person is Donna Taylor, who was helping then and is still helping now. I just emailed you if you're watching, and I told you that you know everything, and so I meant it. And I really appreciate always being able to reach out with a question or two, and you answering so swiftly and with such kindness. Thank you so much for always being there. I want to thank our new committee of readers. It was an unbelievably cool experience getting to share this work with you and then share the time conversing about this work with you. And so Amy Ott, Lauren Coe, Alicia Dietz, Erica Thompson, Kevin Eubanks, and Danielle Searles, thank you all so much for reading this magnificent work with us and helping us by commenting and spending so much time, dedicated to these pieces, helping us decide how to, award first, second, third place, and honorable mention. I want to thank you, Dr. Rochelle Gregory, our Fearless Department Chair, for always supporting us holistically. Thank you so much for the opportunities that you give us, for the responsibility and the trust that you give us. Thank you for leading us fearlessly and so well here. Thank you for always being there and for being a reader as well. I want to thank Lauren Sullivan. I could not have done this. My fearless partner here in the Creative Writing Awards Committee ceremony people thingy. I want to thank you so much for guiding me. I want to thank you for your experience and your expertise in this. And I want you to know how much this means to, go on this adventure with you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing this to be a part of your life as well. Thank you, my friend. I want to thank the English department. I want to thank every teacher, every parent, and every guardian, and then everybody who didn't have anyone supporting them but submitted anyway. Thank you so much for supporting all of these writers and for helping them submit if you did. That means so much to us that you kind of walk them through that process and guide them and mentor them in that way. For everybody who read these poems and these stories and these essays and provided critique, it means so much that you support these writers. And I want to thank everyone who submitted. I know what it takes to submit a piece of your work and to have it judged by somebody, to have it ranked and critiqued when you're not in the room, to have somebody talk about it without you being there to defend it. I know the fearlessness that it takes to do that, and I want to applaud you for it. So win or lose, thank you for being fearless enough to put yourself out there, because each of you put a piece of yourself into what you submitted, and we noticed it, and we loved every second of it. And so thank you from the bottom of our hearts as the Creative Writing Committee now for going through all of this with us, for doing it all digitally with us, and now for being here for the culminating night, the Creative Writing Awards here at NCTC. And so I don't know if you're celebrating now already, if there's fanfare and popcorn being thrown up, but celebrate. Thank you for being here. And now I am so excited to introduce to you and to have you experience the goodness of Kelsey Tony. So I'm going to wait till, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So Kelsey and I met, we were just talking about this backstage. We met at a training over 10 years ago. Makes me feel a little old, but that's all right. I love that we've been doing life together for 10 years.
All right.
10 years ago at a training, we both worked for Denton ISD, different middle schools. And I immediately connected to something that she said. She talked to me about this concept of this character named Imogen. And then it became this, which is, when it first came out, I was on the fan list. And so, what? I got my 2015 signed copy. I have my other signed copy from the Finn Press event as well behind us. But she was a writing teacher who wrote. And I had not found a lot of those. And I felt an unbelievably strong connection. And I was so excited just to talk about the art of writing with somebody else who was teaching others how to write. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things that you bring, not just as a writer, but as just a righteous human being, is your absolute honest energy. That's not what you get so often from speakers. A lot of times you get some energy, but sometimes you don't get that honest energy. And that's what I think is so beautiful about you as a writer and as a speaker, because you present us in your work and in your presentations, you present us with these ideas that can make us whole again, because you talk as somebody who deals with real life issues. This book is filled with some real life issues, with some stuff that's not so great. Yeah. You follow the Vonnegut rule, make terrible things happen to your characters so your readers can see what they're made of. Mm-hmm. And I love that we get to be rebuilt alongside you again and again and again, not just through your characters, but through your advice. And so my friends who are listening, first of all, go online and purchase a copy of Damsel Distressed. It's a phenomenal young adult contemporary novel. But I hope that you have your paper and pen ready to take some notes and to think through the advice and the goodness that you were about to receive. So with no further ado, I want to introduce to you my dear, dear friend and someone whom I admire very much, Kelsey Tony. Take it away.
Thank you, Jake. Wow. Jake is so good at that. As you said, we were talking backstage, and I think it's really wonderful when you've worked alongside someone for long enough to kind of really understand them and really get them and really see them. And I'm so humbled by the attribution that my advice, that my conversation with other creatives is honest. That is just about the very best compliment that I can imagine receiving. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for logging on tonight. As Jake said, my name is Kelsey Tony. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm so excited to be able to talk with all of you here tonight. You are celebrating. You're celebrating an accomplishment, something really spectacular. That has nothing at all to do with whether you win, by the way. The accomplishment came when you clicked the submit button. That's when you really became a winner. That's when you conquered something. I can assure you that there are countless others who maybe even wrote a story or a poem, but could not quite conquer that fear monster and press that button. So you should be incredibly proud of yourself for that accomplishment. Again, I just wanted to start by introducing myself a little bit. My name is Kelsey, and I do write young adult stories. I tend to think of myself a little bit more of a storyteller just than a writer, because I'm a Jill of all trades. I like to do all kinds of different creative endeavors, stories and poetry, and occasionally dabbling in visual arts. I've dabbled in podcasting and YouTube and a number of other things. I like to think of creativity as being one of those like on the wind kind of qualities in the world, in the universe, that there are beautiful things to be made all around us, and we just have to decide that we want to pluck it out and spend the time, right? Conquer the fear. So I've heard that there are people watching this award show, people that submitted, that range all the way from middle school through non-professional adult writers, which is incredible. So as we go through the rest of this evening and you guys share the victory of having accomplished this, I hope that you know that you are widespread and there is a lot of you. There are so many of you from so many different walks of life, and you really, really have done something exceptional. So I just wanted to start by, again, returning to this knowing Jake thing. When he first asked me to talk with you guys this evening, he did it in his traditional Jake way, where he's like, Hey, Kelsey, you're so awesome. You're so positive. You're so optimistic. Our writers need to hear from you. You've got something exciting and passionate and powerful to share. I want you to talk to these people about creating things and making things and persevering when it's hard and doing the hard work. And I'm like, is he talking about me? Because I don't know how 2020 was for you, but for me, 2020 was kind of a dumpster fire. And my own personal creative life was down. It was so low. There were so many things happening, not just in our own country, in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods, but also in the whole world. We have been living in a time of unrest and frustration and fear and sickness and injustice and trauma and depression and anxiety. Like, we have all been down in it. So when Jake says, you know, hey, powerful, wonderful, exciting, positive speaker, want to come talk? And I'm like, no. Who is this message intended for? Obviously, it wasn't intended for me, because little does he know, I'm obviously a sham. I haven't written anything in months. And it's funny how I instantly connected the dots in my mind that I had somehow begun to equate my value as a writer with my output. And that's not fair, and it's not true, and it's not good, and it's not right. So tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about what it is that makes creatives creatives, what it is that makes us writers. And it isn't just that we write. It isn't just that we put something out there. It isn't just that we have our fingers on the keys or our fingers on the pens. It isn't our output that makes us writers. And so, to begin, I did spend the rest of this year in a low place, like so many others. And I think that a lot of the trouble that we've faced as creatives this last year has been because of a feeling of separation. Art does not exist in a vacuum. We create art because we are surrounded. We create art because we have placed ourselves next to things, and whether next to things or within things or, beside things, and whether the thing that we've surrounded ourselves with is a lot of loud voices and people and color or beautiful scenery, or whether it's intentionally placing ourselves in an empty room or a quiet space. We choose the things that surround us. And in the last many, many months of our lives, we haven't had much choice about what we surround ourselves with. We've all pretty much been stuck in one place and around certain people. We haven't been able to let ourselves be free with the things that are around us and that inspire us. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind, that the last year of our lives is not the year by which we should measure our success. There have been some things that have been outside of our control. And that's why I tend to think about the process of being a writer as being a balance between grace and pressure. You have to have both. And you can't really do writing or creating with just one. You have to have grace and also pressure. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the grace part first. There's this notion that if you are going to call yourself a creator, then you have to be making things all the time. That you have to have this creative output all the time. And if you're not making the thing, then you're not actually creating. And I do think that it is important that we call ourselves creators, because we have how many of us have a friend who has said, oh yeah, I would love to be a writer. I'll definitely, I just can't find the time. And as a person who's done writing, that that's not ever the case. You'll never find the time. It isn't going to fall out of the sky into your lap, right? You have to make that time. So one of the things that I remember from teaching, Jake mentioned that we both have been teachers for a long, long time. I am in my 15th year of public education. A lot of the time has been spent in middle school. I spent 12 years in middle school. I will be spending my 16th year in education back in middle school. after a brief hiatus in high school. And I love talking with middle schoolers. I love teaching middle schoolers. And one of my favorite units to teach was poetry. And I love teaching poetry because I felt like, as a writer and poet myself, I could do it. I understood it. So the first year that I'm trying to teach poetry, I thought that I had it all down. I thought I had a good handle on what poetry really was, and I felt really sure that I'd be able to explain it to my students. And I tried to chalk it up to certain aspects of poetry, like rhyme or rhythm. And of course, my students are like, but sometimes poems don't rhyme. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Well, poetry, I take another approach. Poetry is really about, the description of beautiful, thoughtful things. And they're like, there are poems about like feet and like garbage. Like, have you heard of Shel Silverstein? And I'm like, okay, that's true. That's true. That's true. And I'm trying to tell them that it's about description and it's about feeling and it's about lines. And I'm like, it's not that either. You're right. It's not. Like, I can fake slam poetry like better than anybody. And there was always a clamoring for my slam poetry impression. What was that? You wanted to hear that? Okay. Well, since you have asked so very nicely, I will give you a very, very small slam poetry impression from the mind of a middle school teacher. I would tell my students that slam poetry has a particular sound, that slam poets are talking about something that is deeply, deeply important to them, and it builds within them the things that they want to say. They grow and expand inside their voice until they just stop and they bring it back down and they connect it to a thought that you hadn't thought of before. So I do this impression of slam poetry, and I'm now, of course, totally off the rails. And my kids are like, so what is poetry again? I'm real confused now. And I have to say, in this burst of emotion, I'm like, poetry is poetry because you can't write a poem by accident. It's poetry because you chose it to be poetry. And I felt like I figured it out. I felt like that's it. Poetry is poetry because you decided that it was poetry. You made it to be poetry. You named it poetry. It's the reason that you can't just take any old sentence and chop it up just to a couple of words on each line and call it a poem. You can't just take a sentence out of your paragraph and, break it apart onto 4 different lines and then say that that's a stanza. I mean, unless you're trying to do something avant-garde, that's not poetry. Poetry is written to be poetry. It's created to be poetry. And that's kind of how I began to define myself as a creative person. I'm a creator. I'm a writer because I declared myself to be one. I'm a writer because I declared that I was. You, my friends, are writers because you decided that you are. And it doesn't matter how many stories you write. It doesn't matter how many poems get published. It doesn't matter if your novel gets selected by an acquisition board to be published by a major publisher. None of those things make you a writer. What makes you a writer is that you've said that you are, that you've decided that you are, that you know that you are. You're writers because you have a story to tell. You have something to say. You're writers because even when your creative output is low, you know that you're still a writer in your heart. You're a writer because even though the world has been on fire and things have been difficult and you have been scared and life has been unpredictable, you still have a story in your heart. Even though things are challenging and even though you don't want to, you've given yourself some grace. You're willing to give yourself a moment to breathe. You're willing to find the time to forgive yourself, to take the time to forgive yourself when things don't go exactly as you planned. And there is a deep, deep need for writers to show themselves grace. We must show ourselves grace. Life is hard. I'm a long-time mental health advocate. I have spent a lot of years talking with young people and old people about mental health. Jake mentioned my book, Damsel Distressed, is very much about life being hard. That we are not always okay. That sometimes we are struggling. Sometimes we are struggling and sad and lonely. And sometimes we are anxious and worried. Sometimes we're moving across the country, or our family is changing, or the person that we love is sick, or any infinite other reasons that our writing might end up on the back burner. Our creativity might end up on the back burner. For a lot of us, our creativity has been on the back burner for most of the last year because we haven't had the extra energy. We haven't had what it takes to do the work of creating. And we've had to decide to extend ourselves some grace and know that we are still writers, even when we're not producing something every day or every week or every month. So Jake invites me to come and talk, and he says, "You're so awesome." And I'm like, "No, I'm not awesome." And then I'm like, "Yeah, I am awesome. It's okay. I may not be actively pursuing awesomeness today. I might be on my couch eating Cheetos for the third day in a row, but that does not mean that I'm not awesome. I am still awesome. I just am taking a break. I'm taking care of myself. I'm showing myself some grace because I've been spread a little thin. Life has been weird. There have been a lot of changes going on. Grace is a huge part of the equation. But it's not the only part. It's not the only part. It's like a seesaw, okay? It's like a teeter-totter. You got grace and pressure. So we've done a little talking about the grace. And now, unfortunately, we've got to look at the other side of that coin. And we've got to talk about the pressure. It's totally cool for us to need to take some time. It's totally cool for us to need to put creativity on the back burner for a period. But writers, creatives, it's like a kettle on the stove. At the beginning, the water is cool and it's fine that it isn't immediately, being poured into your tea. But the longer that water sits there, the hotter the burning gets. Eventually, that kettle starts to whistle. That call to tell stories, that call to create, that pressure inside us builds up, and we have to decide to push, to let it out. We have to decide to make the thing, even though there's a lot going on. And those are the moments that are tricky, right? Because what I found over the last year is that, man, giving myself grace is awesome. I can give myself grace anytime I want. Oh, I'm feeling a little under the weather. You know what I need? I need to rewatch Gilmore Girls for the 14th time. That's what I need. I don't need deadlines of pressure and revision calendars and editorial boards. You know what I need? What I need is to have another Zoom call with my cat and my mom in Texas from where I live in Idaho. That is what I need. And I discovered that I was applying grace sometimes when I didn't need to, because there was something off about my pressure sensor. So again, as a student of self-discovery, right, I start trying to figure out, what is this thing? Like, what is the difference? Why am I not writing? Why is there not enough pressure? Why am I not putting my fingers on the keys and doing the thing? What I found was not so fun. What I'm about to tell you, maybe not so fun. If you are not creating because you have a good reason, because you're feeling anxious, or you've got a transition at work, or you have midterm coming up and you need to study, or you are on vacation, or you're gonna have a baby or whatever. That's valid. But if the reason that you're not making stuff is because you're scared, then it's time to put on the pressure. And truly, most of the time that the writers that I know aren't writing, it's because they're scared. They're scared of something. Maybe it's fear of failure, or maybe it's fear of your work being misjudged. Maybe it's fear of being misunderstood. Maybe it's fear that we'll be rejected. Maybe it's fear that they won't want our work. They won't want to publish our story. I won't win the contest. And all of a sudden, that fear will shut you down. It will shut you down hard. And it will make it so that creating is almost impossible. And that is when you have to bring the pressure. You have to do the hard work. You have to investigate. You have to look carefully and closely. You have to be really, really sure of why you feel stuck. And if you can be honest with yourself, and if you can find that the reason that you haven't done another story since you submitted the one that's been judged for this contest, if there's a reason that you haven't written anything since you submitted what you submitted for this contest, if there's a reason, and that reason is fear, then it is time, my friend, to put your fingers back on the keys, to pick up your pen. Because you have something to say. You have a story that you need to tell. And life is not going to always be easy. We can't predict, obviously, how the world is going to play out. We cannot predict how things in our lives will change. And we have to find a way to give ourselves room for those uncomfortable changes, those moments in life that are hard. But we also, as writers, have to know when it's time to push. We have to know when it's time to apply the pressure. You can't be a writer and only have one or the other. You have to know when staying up for 20 more minutes will result in you unlocking the secret of that character's motivation. You have to know when you've been working for 20 minutes too long and the words are not coming and it's time to go and get some rest. You have to know when you need grace and when you need pressure. And you definitely, definitely need both. There are lots of good reasons not to work, but fear is the thing that you cannot abide. And if you find yourself afraid of your work, then I hope that you will take the time to look at what you've surrounded yourself with. Have you found your people? Do you have those who love you in your corner, who are willing to talk with you? Have you found a community of other creatives to be frustrated alongside? Have you found other people who know what it feels like to want to write and not know exactly how to say what you're trying to say? Because that community will make a huge, huge difference as well. I really hope that you will all move forward from this evening feeling inspired and excited, not only to write more, because believe me, the world needs your words. The world needs your creativity. I hope that you will also be inspired to investigate the balance within yourself of grace and pressure. I hope that you will be inspired to consider why you are or are not making something in any given moment in your life. The next time things are hard and tricky in your world and you feel like writing has to be on the back burner for you to survive, maybe that is true. And maybe it's also an opportunity for you to see what happens when you apply a little bit more pressure. Because sometimes the most amazing things come during the periods that we thought were going to be full of only pain. Sometimes the moments when we conquer the fear are the moments that really, really show us what we're made of, because we're able to make something in those moments that is undeniably beautiful. You all should be so very proud of what you have accomplished. Thank you all so much for having me here. Jake, thank you so much for your kind invitation to speak tonight. I hope that you and all of the rest of the NCTC crew have a wonderful award ceremony this evening. And I'm just so honored that you let me be a part of it.
I am so grateful that Dr. Gregory approved and allowed you to come into my living room here, slash dining room, slash bookshelf room, to speak directly to me about my own issues as a
What can I do,
creator.
right?
Like every time you talk or I read your work or I look at your advice online and YouTube, you know, it really is like, it's directly for me. And I know that this would have been awesome in a big auditorium with all these people around. It would have been crazy cool. But how amazing was it, dear friends who are watching this digitally, 1 or 5,000, remember, I don't know how many, but how amazing was it that you just got a one-on-one chat with the real deal. Thank you, Kelsey. I love you. I love your work.
Love you
I
guys
love your
too.
spirit. I love your heart. Amazing. Absolutely brilliant. Celebrate at your house. Throw the popcorn now. Forget throwing it earlier. Throw it now.
Thank
Bye,
you,
my
Jake.
friend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, dear friends, on to the next portion. So now we're going to do something a little bit new. One of the things that we really wanted to bring you were some of the voices that are going to be in the April Perennial this year. And so we want to celebrate writing by having you hear and experience excerpts of stories and poems by some of the writers who are going to be published this year, who are going to represent all the people who submitted. And so we want to welcome James, we want to welcome Andrea and Cassidy here. They're going to read some of their work for you. And once again, I encourage you to listen with open ears, obviously, but also open mind and an open heart. And I hope that you enjoy and that you learn something. Take it away, dear friends. Good luck. You're going to be fantastic.
So, good day, everyone. My name is James Hunter, a student from Slidell ISD and in Texas. The piece I actually wrote a few years back. It's called Dreamer. And I wrote it for a contest on Instagram at one point, but back then I was kind of underconfident, and I ended up submitting it a bit too late to enter the contest. So this is the first time I actually submitted it to a contest on time, and I'm so glad that I did, because this whole adventure with my English teacher up at school has been great. So I know I'm not supposed to waste too much time. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get through this as fast as I can so that I can let my esteemed cohorts go on after me. So the room was cold. She could feel nothing from the waist down. Her head hurt with a splitting ache. She couldn't remember anything that had happened, nor could she remember where she was or what her own name was. The bed beneath her was not comfortable. It felt solid and strong like a rock. She looked around the room and attempted to jog her memory. The walls and ceiling were smooth silver metal. The floor was a white tile pattern with a large blue square painted in the center of the room. There was no visible door that she could see, and the only exit appeared to be a ventilation shaft on the far wall. It was now that she sat up. Her legs were not willing to move with the rest of her body. She had been paralyzed. She grew annoyed at the prospect of not knowing her own name, so she resolved to christen herself Me. A name like Me was reliable enough until she could get more of her mind back. Me had defied herself to turn around. The back left corner of the room was the only thing that had eluded her gaze due to her orientation. A small black round camera was on the ceiling just behind her. It was aimed directly at her. The question was, who was watching? After taking some time to let her eyes focus on the small object, she could see it was attempting to get a better picture on her. The lens was shifting in the black shell like an eyeball, dilating itself to a new level of received light. At least this confirmed that she was being watched. "I know you can hear me," she cried out at the lens. No response came for a long time, and Me began to wonder if perhaps she was insane. This could not have been a dream. She had already pinched herself no less than 3 times to confirm it. Her worries were starting to depress her, and she simply wished she could go back to sleep and act like none of this was happening. The situation worsened as her legs began to hurt. She grasped her left calf with her hands in the hope that she could apply enough pressure to relieve the pain. "Do not fear. The pain will pass. You are in no direct danger. In fact, you are safest for as long as you are feeling pain. That voice, it was metallic. Who or what could have spoken to her with that sound? Me froze in place like a rodent in the direct path of a snake. She barely managed to make her next words come out of her mouth. Who are you? Where am I? The sound came back. It sounded like a rasping croak. We are this facility's direct response engine and machinations relay. We are codename Dreamer. Thank you. So,
hi everyone, my name is Andrea DeFreitas. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a non-professional adult writer living in Denton, Texas. This is my poem, Inventory. Okay, so I have 12 slices of bread, which makes 4 sandwiches and as many pieces of toast, smeared with peanut butter. That takes care of breakfast and lunch. The half tank of gas remaining will cover 2 shifts going 35 miles each way, which still leaves 2 more. Mother's silver charm bracelet will have to be sold to get me to and from work those last couple times. It won't be worn by the 3rd generation now, but needs must. My 7 Harry Potter books will buy a box of spaghetti and a jar of sauce, plus 8 hot dogs and as many buns will see us through till Friday. Thank you.
And I'm a sophomore from LISD, and I'll be reading my poem, Tacit Alfine, or an excerpt from my poem, Tacit Alfine. Half rap, half melody, my mind scribbled a line I know I'll never read, because the pen runs dry halfway through, and there's not a moment to start new. Half the words unreadable, their ink smeared as I fumble for coherence, a semicolon, but nothing follows, but silence. Pause here, a stutter, a word repeated too many times. I miss a cue. Syllables out of tune, but the melody keeps on and I can't seem to catch up. Tongue-tied, though my tongue's tried, I feel choked even though there's air aplenty. Words are scattered, all thoughts, figments I can't grasp, can't seem to make clear. Thoughts waltz, but their laces are knotted and the drum is a beat too early. So they kick and they struggle and they scream and me with them. The drum in me beats too, faster and faster. Tailcoats of thoughts whirl and fall and collide. The music crescendos, pressure to say, to express, grows louder, insistent. Conversation, a race against time. The eyes aren't judging, but patient. But I am judging. I am impatient. Embarrassed that I can't even speak what's on my mind. Hyper aware of seconds lost, moments of silence, too long. I forget to breathe, to listen. I forget. The voices around me blur into a singular drum. I forget. I forget. I lose my place on the page. Ah, wait, here it is. And just like that, my thoughts gain footing. They sail and spin and fly, sail out the door, flying open in the wind. Thrown open off its hinges, the words tumble out and thoughts with them. All at once, hoop skirts hiked and shoes clicking, the air is thick with noise. The rhyme becomes lopsided, grammar jumble, a flurry turns crowd, turns mob, turns mess. Too loud, too fast, too much, too much, too much, too much. I stop. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant, my friends. Thank you so much for your over-the-top bravery of coming on and reading some of your work for all of these people. Thank you. We celebrate you. And once again, if you have popcorn, throw it up in the air and celebrate these writers. Well done, my friends. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Congratulations. And now, for the part that many have been waiting for, we are going to now reveal the winners of each of our prizes. So, my notes here. It's very important. I feel very official. I even highlighted things. Look at that. Huh? Yeah, I know. All right. So, for the Gifted Pin Poetry Contest, honorable mention goes to Your Fractals by Abel Aguilera. 3rd place goes to Texas Weather by Ariel Aguilera. 2nd place goes to Mountains by Dylan Howland. And 1st place goes to My Soul by Gracie Grawl. Congratulations, winners of the Gifted Pin Poetry Contest. Next will be the Andy and Emily Clement Short Story Contest. In honorable mention, we have My Secret Powers by Dara Cook. In third place, we have Dragon Connection, again by Ariel Aguilera. In second place, we have What Do You Call a Blue-Spotted Cow by Cora Stallings. And in first place, we have Mia's Name by Molly Morgan. Congratulations, winners. Next, we have the Keith King Memorial Poetry Contest. In honorable mention, we have The Sea by Jenna Proctor. In third place, we have Flesh and Bones by Juna Chang. In second place, we have Cast Not Pearls Before Swine by Catherine Atkins. And in first place, we have Tasset El Fine by Cassidy Wong. Congratulations, writers. Next, we have the Brad Dill Memorial Short Story Contest. In honorable mention, we have Through the Eyes of Trypanophobia by Alma Shait. In third place, we have Yesterday by Anna Abraham. In second place, we have The Pain Collector by Kerrigan Furland. And in first place, we have Dreamer by James Hunter. Congratulations, writers. The next contest is the Aspiring Poet Contest. In honorable mention, we have The Card Poem by Alyssa Barnes. In third place, we have Homesick for November by Dylan Cole Sanders. In second place, we have A Moment of Clarity by Ashley Morales. And in first place, we have Poignant by Mary Morrison. Congratulations, writers. The next contest is the Gerald McDaniel Short Story Contest. In honorable mention, we have How Mary Got Her Little Lamb by Catherine Hunter. In third place, we have When Fear Falls in the Forest and No One is There to Hear It. And man, I love a long title. Well done. We have Ashlyn Fowler. In second place, we have again Together by Mary Morrison. And in first place, we have The Woman of the Emerald Wood by Chanel Hicks. Congratulations, friends. Next, we have the NCTC Creative Nonfiction Contest. In honorable mention, we have Dear God by Array Tang Inao. In third place, we have Food for Thought by Hayden Huber. In second place, we have Understanding by Ashley Morales. And in first place, we have How to Navigate Being by Jennifer Vidana. Congratulations. The next contest is the NCTC Expository Writing Contest. In honorable mention, we don't have anybody. I just realized that. In third place, though, we have Evaluating Possible Solutions to Malnutrition by Talia Allen. In second place, we have Important Factors to Consider in Promoting Child Literacy by Mary Morrison. And in first place, we have Stars and Stripes by Ashlyn Fowler. Congratulations, friends. Next, we have the Garland Ray Wallace Poetry Contest. In third place, we have Finding Myself by Cindy Brandt. In second place, we have In Honor of the One Who Saved Me by Barbara Curtis. And in first place, we have Inventory by Andrea De Freitas. Congratulations, writers. And our final contest is the Vivian Tomlinson Short Story Contest. In third place, we have The Black SUV by Dax Davis. In second place, we have Henry vs. Edgar by Christian Torres. And in first place, we have Edenbridge to Bath by Jennifer Rizzolo. a huge congratulations to all of you, my dear friends. Everything was an absolute pleasure to read, and we celebrate your work. This is another call. If you are watching this and you have not sent us your address, please do so you can get your comp copy. And in first, second, and place, maybe a little something extra. You never know. But we are now at the end of our journey together, my dear friends. And so we're going to bring everybody back on to wish you a wonderful night. And we have one more person to thank. I want to give a huge, massive thank you to Elizabeth Abu, who has put on more of these things to keep us connected together while we are all separate than I could even count. I don't even know how many you're at. I am sure you stopped like scratching them on the wall. But thank you, my friend, for making these events possible, for making them seamless, for doing so with such encouragement, with such kindness. It is a brilliant experience working with you, Liz, and I just appreciate you so very much. So everybody at home, once again, throw the popcorn, celebrate. Thank you so, so much. If you are still watching and you made it this far with us, we want to thank you again for being here in the 2021 Creative Writing Awards here at North Central Texas College. Keep writing and just listen to Kelsey's advice. Balance that grace and pressure and fight the fear. Go make some art and share it with the world. We love and respect you. Have a wonderful evening, dear friends. Goodbye.